The blast alarm had been silent for 11 years when it began ringing beneath the mountain. One slow bell, then another, then a third. Men stopped talking in the rain. A county truck idled beside the chained entrance of the abandoned Bellweather Mine, its headlights cutting through the gray morning. Water ran down the rusted warning sign. The words "danger, mine closed" had faded until only danger could still be read. At the mouth of the tunnel, 16-year-old Isaiah Cole stood with mud on his jeans and an old brass compass pressed into his palm. The needle was not pointing north. It was pointing into the mine. Behind him, Sheriff Hale raised his voice. "Step away from that gate." Isaiah did not move. Something deep inside the mountain struck metal again. The sound traveled through the flooded tunnels like a hammer hitting a pipe. One bell. A pause, two bells. The men beside the sheriff looked at one another. Nobody had worked below Bellweather Ridge since the company declared the mine empty. Nobody was supposed to be inside. The lower tunnels had collapsed years ago. The pumps had been removed. The maps had been sealed in county storage. And Isaiah's father had vanished there 8 years earlier. Sheriff Hale reached for the boy's shoulder. Isaiah turned quickly, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the gate. "That signal means someone's alive." The sheriff's hand stopped. Rain tapped against hard hats hanging inside the county truck. One of the old miners lowered his face. Because Isaiah was right. 3 bells followed by one was not an alarm. It was the old Bellweather rescue code. The same code Isaiah's father had taught him when he was 8 years old. The sheriff looked toward the tunnel, then back at Isaiah. "That system has no power." Another bell rang beneath the mountain. Isaiah opened his hand. The brass compass shook against his skin. Its glass was cracked. The letters were worn. Along the back, someone had scratched 4 words with the tip of a nail. "Find what they missed." Isaiah had carried it every day since the morning his father disappeared. Until that rainy morning, he had never understood what the words meant. The sheriff ordered everyone away from the gate while the county engineer checked the ground. Isaiah was taken home in the back of a patrol car, wet clothes sticking to the seat, the mountain shrinking behind the rear window. By noon, officials had called the ringing a mechanical accident. By evening, the county released a statement saying shifting rock had likely struck an old signal line. By the next morning, a new steel lock had been placed on the mine. No rescue team entered. No search began, and the bells stopped. Isaiah sat at the kitchen table while his mother folded uniforms for the night shift at St. Anne's Hospital. The dryer turned in the next room. A ceiling fan clicked overhead. On the table between them rested the compass. His mother never looked at it. "You went up there again," she said. Isaiah watched rainwater slide down the window. "I heard the bell." "You heard old metal in an old mountain. It used the rescue code." Her hand stopped folding, only for a second. Then she lifted another blue uniform and smoothed its sleeves. "The mine took enough from this family." Isaiah closed his fingers around the compass. His mother looked older when she was tired, not weak. Never weak, just worn at the edges like paper handled too many times. She worked 10-hour shifts, sometimes 12. She left food covered on the stove. She kept every bill in a yellow envelope. She never complained when the power company called. But she had stopped saying Isaiah's father's name. 8 years earlier, Daniel Cole had left before sunrise carrying a metal lunch box and that brass compass. Bellweather Mining had called him a maintenance mechanic, but Daniel knew every tunnel in the ridge. He could repair pumps, read pressure cracks, and hear dangerous rock before it moved. At 2:17 that afternoon, the lower section collapsed. The company searched for 6 days. They found Daniel's broken helmet near Shaft 9. They found no body. The official report said he had entered a sealed area without permission. The insurance payment was denied. 3 weeks later, Bellweather Mining closed the mine, claiming the remaining copper vein was too thin to recover. People in town stopped asking questions because the mine had once paid nearly everyone. Then the jobs disappeared. The stores closed one by one. Bellweather Ridge remained above them, green in summer, white in winter, holding its silence. Isaiah's mother picked up the compass. She rubbed her thumb over the scratched words. "He gave you this because you liked it," she said, "not because he wanted you chasing ghosts." Isaiah looked at her face. "Did he scratch those words?" She placed the compass down. The dryer buzzed in the next room. "I don't know." It was the first answer she had given him that felt like a door closing. Isaiah waited until she left for work. Then he walked 3 blocks to the old machine shop beside the railroad tracks. The sign above the door read Coal Repair, though nobody named Cole had worked there in years. The windows were dusty. Weeds pushed through cracks in the concrete. Inside, his father's tools still hung on a wall in the same careful order. Isaiah had been repairing lawn mowers there after school for cash. He was good with small engines, good enough that people brought him broken things before taking them to the expensive shop in the next county. He understood machines because machines did not hide their damage. They rattled, they leaked, they burned. People could smile while something inside them broke. Isaiah switched on the desk lamp and placed the compass beneath it. The needle leaned east, not north. He turned the compass slowly. The needle stayed fixed toward the mountain. He opened the cracked back with a narrow screwdriver. Inside, beneath the magnet, was a folded strip of paper no wider than his finger. His breathing changed. He pulled it free with tweezers. The paper held 6 numbers written in his father's handwriting. 9-14-327-62. Below them was a single letter. B. Isaiah spread an old mine map across the workbench. It had hung in the shop since Daniel's time. Most of the ink had faded, but the shafts and tunnels were still visible. Shaft 9, Level 14, Tunnel 3. The next numbers made no sense. 27, 6, 2. He checked measurements, vent lines, support posts, emergency stations. Nothing fit. Then he noticed the letter B bell code. At the mine, bells had once carried instructions through miles of tunnel. 1 bell meant stop, 2 meant lower, 3 meant raise. Combinations gave more exact orders. Isaiah searched through a drawer of old manuals until he found a grease-stained booklet from 1989. On the final page, Daniel had written extra codes by hand. 27 was not a tunnel number. It meant side passage. 6 meant water. 2 meant descend. Isaiah read the full message again. Shaft 9, Level 14, Tunnel 3, side passage, water, descend. A path. His father had hidden a path inside the compass. A truck door slammed outside. Isaiah folded the paper and slipped it into his pocket. Mr. Amos Reed entered the shop, shaking rain from his jacket. He was 68, thin, and bent slightly from 40 years underground. A pale scar crossed his left cheek and disappeared beneath his beard. His eyes moved to the map, then to the open compass. "What did you find?" Isaiah said nothing. Amos walked closer. The old man had worked with Daniel on the day of the collapse. He had also been the last person to see him alive. Isaiah pulled the paper from his pocket. Amos read the numbers. The color left his face. "You need to burn this." Isaiah stared at him. "You know what it means." "I know the lower levels are full of water. You told the sheriff the bell was real." "I said it sounded real." "Why did my father hide this?" Amos folded the paper once. His fingers trembled. "Some things stay buried because digging them up costs more than you think." Isaiah took the note back. "My father already paid." Amos looked toward the dark windows. A freight train moved past outside, making the tools on the wall shake. "Your father believed Bellweather lied about the mine being empty," he said. "He found signs of a second vein below the flooded section, a rich one." Isaiah's fingers tightened around the paper. "Copper?" Amos shook his head. "He never told me exactly. He only said the company was looking in the wrong place." "Then why close the mine?" Amos's eyes settled on Daniel's old helmet hanging from a hook. "Because the wrong place was safer." The next day, Isaiah went to the county records building. The woman at the front desk knew his mother. She gave him a tired smile and said the Bellweather files were not available to the public. "Why?" "Legal restriction." "From who?" She looked at the computer. "Bellweather Holdings. The company closed." The name did, the owners didn't. Isaiah left without arguing. He crossed the parking lot and saw Sheriff Hale leaning against his patrol car, drinking coffee. The sheriff watched him approach. "You're asking questions again. Someone doesn't want those records opened. Mining reports contain private surveys. For an empty mine," Hale threw the coffee cup into a bin, "your father made a mistake down there." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "You weren't there." "No, but I saw what happened afterward. Your mother nearly lost the house. She worked nights while you slept in the hospital break room. You were too young to remember." "I remember enough." "Then remember what that mountain does to people." Hale opened the driver's door. Isaiah noticed a small line of red mud across the sheriff's boot. The same red clay found only on the north side of Bellweather Ridge, near the sealed ventilation road. "Why were you at the mine?" Isaiah asked. Hale looked down at his boot, then back at the boy. "Go home." That evening, Isaiah rode his bicycle to the North Ridge. The rain had stopped, but fog hung between the trees. He left the bike in a ditch and followed an old service road until he saw fresh tire tracks. A portable generator sat behind a locked fence. A cable ran from it into an abandoned ventilation building. Isaiah crouched behind a fallen pine. Two men in clean jackets stood near the building. One held a tablet, the other spoke into a phone. "The signal line woke up because the water dropped," the man said. "We need the lower route sealed before the state inspector arrives." Isaiah lifted his phone and began recording. A branch snapped beneath his shoe. Both men turned. Isaiah ran. He moved through wet brush, branches striking his face. Behind him, boots hit the road. A flashlight swept between the trees. He reached his bicycle, pushed it into the ditch, and slid down the muddy slope with it. One wheel bent against a rock. The men appeared above him. Isaiah abandoned the bicycle and crossed the creek. The water climbed to his knees. He slipped once, catching himself on both hands. His phone struck a stone beneath the surface. The screen went black. He kept moving until the voices disappeared. At the machine shop, he opened the phone on the workbench. Water dripped from the case. He removed the battery, cleaned the board, dried the contacts, and waited. Nothing. He tried again. The screen flashed. For 1 second, the video appeared. Then the phone died. The recording was gone. Isaiah sat beneath the lamp while darkness filled the shop around him. His first real proof had lasted less than a breath. The next morning, Amos found him asleep at the workbench. Beside Isaiah lay the damaged phone, the hidden note, and Daniel's old bell code manual. Amos placed 2 paper cups of hot chocolate on the table. "I was 26 when I first went underground," he said. "I thought fear was something you beat. Your father taught me it was something you listened to." Isaiah opened his eyes. "Are you going to help me?" "No." Amos took the map and studied Shaft 9. Then he pointed to a thin line Isaiah had missed. "But I'll show you why this route will kill you." The line was an old drainage tunnel built before the main mine expanded. It began near the river and climbed beneath the ridge. Bellweather Mining had marked it collapsed. Amos tapped the map. "Your father never believed it was." For 6 days they prepared. They repaired 2 headlamps, tested rope, charged gas meters, cleaned an old hand pump. Amos taught Isaiah how to read timber strain and how to smell bad air before a meter caught it. Nothing worked the first time. The pump seal broke. One lamp failed. The rope was too short. The gas meter gave false readings. Each repair used money Isaiah had saved for school. His mother found the empty envelope. She waited in the kitchen until he came home. On the table sat the compass. Beside it lay the hidden paper. "You opened it," she said. Isaiah stopped in the doorway. She had been crying, but her voice remained steady. "You lied to me. I was trying to find out what happened. I know what happened. Your father chose that mine over coming home." The words struck harder because she said them quietly. "He found something," Isaiah said. "He always found something, a broken pump, a hidden tunnel, a reason to stay 1 more hour. He left me a map. No, he left us debt." Isaiah looked at the yellow bill envelope near the refrigerator. His mother pressed both hands against the table. You think I don't want answers? I have wanted answers every morning for 8 years, but wanting them does not make the mountain safe. What if he was telling the truth? Her face folded for a moment, then she looked away. That is what I'm afraid of. She walked into her bedroom and closed the door. Isaiah picked up the compass. For the first time, it felt heavy, not like a clue, like a thing his father had chosen to leave instead of himself. The next morning, Isaiah told Amos the search was over. They stood outside the machine shop as wind pushed dry leaves across the railway tracks. Amos nodded once. He did not argue. Then he handed Isaiah a small cassette tape. Your father gave me this 2 days before the collapse. Isaiah stared at it. You had this for 8 years. I promised him I would give it to you when you were old enough to understand why he stayed. And you decided that was today? No, Amos said. I decided I was tired of being a coward. They found an old tape player beneath the office desk. Daniel's voice emerged through static. It sounded younger than Isaiah remembered. If you're hearing this, then I was right or I was a fool, maybe both. Isaiah leaned closer. The lower survey is false. The company knows there is something beneath level 14, not just ore, water, clean water under pressure, enough to supply this town for generations. The tape clicked. Daniel breathed near the microphone. They plan to seal it because opening the chamber would prove the upper waste ponds have been leaking into the river. They've been hiding the damage. If the chamber is mapped, the town can stop them before the whole valley is poisoned. Isaiah's eyes moved toward Amos. The tape continued. I copied the route, but they took my papers, so I put the path somewhere they wouldn't search. The compass. If anything happens, tell Lena I was trying to come home. Tell Isaiah I did not stay for the mine. I stayed because he deserves a town with water he can drink. A long silence followed. Then Daniel's voice softened. And tell him a compass doesn't show you where to go, it only keeps you from lying about which way you're facing. The tape ended. Isaiah remained still. Outside, a train horn sounded far down the line. Amos wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. Your father went down during the evacuation because the company was sending men to seal the chamber. Did he cause the collapse? No. He tried to stop it. You knew. I knew enough. Why did you stay quiet? Amos looked at the floor. Because they offered us money, then they threatened our families. Most men took the money, I took the fear. Isaiah picked up the compass. The needle leaned toward the mountain. This time he understood. His father had not left him treasure, he had left him responsibility. They entered the drainage tunnel before dawn. Isaiah's mother believed he was sleeping at Amos's house. It was the second lie he told her, and it hurt more than the first. The tunnel opened behind a curtain of vines near the river. Cold air moved from the darkness. Rusted rails disappeared beneath shallow water. Amos checked the gas meter. Slow steps, touch nothing you don't need. Their lamps moved across stone walls, old cables, and white mineral lines. Water dripped in steady beats. For the first 100 yards, the tunnel held. Then they reached the first collapse. A wall of rock blocked the passage. Isaiah stared at it. The map had failed. Amos examined the left wall and found a narrow gap above the rail line. Air's moving. They removed stones one at a time. After an hour, Isaiah squeezed through. His jacket caught on sharp rock. Dust filled his mouth. For several seconds, he could not move forward or back. His breath became fast. The mountain pressed against his ribs. Then his hand found open space. Amos pulled from the other side, and Isaiah fell into a hidden section of tunnel. On the wall, beneath years of dust, someone had drawn an arrow in yellow paint. D.C. Daniel Cole. Isaiah touched the initials. A fresh sound rolled through the rock, water not dripping, moving. They followed the arrows deeper. At level 14, the air changed. It smelled of iron and wet stone. The old timbers leaned inward. Some cracked softly as the men passed. They reached Tunnel 3. A steel door blocked the side passage. New bolts had been drilled into old rock. Bellweather Holdings had been there recently. Amos placed a hand on the metal. This wasn't here before. Isaiah searched the frame. At knee height, hidden beneath mud, was a narrow opening for an emergency release. The brass compass fit inside. He turned it. A lock clicked. The door opened 6 inches, cold air rushed through. Beyond it, a steep shaft descended into black water. A bell cable ran down the wall. Isaiah pulled it once. Far below, a bell answered, not by itself. Something was tied to the other end. They descended using the rope. At the bottom, they found a platform half covered by water and an old rescue bell hanging from a beam. A broken pipe had shifted with the rising water, pulling the signal cable each time pressure changed. The ringing had been an accident, but beneath the bell sat Daniel's metal lunch box. Isaiah stopped breathing. The box was rusted shut. They forced it open with a pry bar. Inside were survey photographs sealed in waxed cloth, water test results, and a small notebook. No body, no final message. Only proof. Amos turned toward the chamber wall. A line of fresh cracks spread through the stone. The gas meter began to beep. "We leave now?" A deep vibration moved beneath their boots. Water burst through one crack in a thin, clear stream, then another. The chamber was opening. Isaiah shoved the notebook into his jacket. Amos lifted the lunch box. The platform tilted. A timber snapped above them. Their rope fell into the water. The shaft filled with dust. Isaiah found the bell cable. "It reaches the top." "It won't hold both of us." "Then one at a time." Amos gripped the cable and began climbing. Halfway up, a rock struck his shoulder. His hand slipped. Isaiah caught the cable below him, taking the weight through both arms. The brass compass fell from Isaiah's pocket. It struck the platform and slid toward the water. For 8 years, Isaiah had carried it everywhere. For 8 years, it had been the last piece of his father he could touch. He looked at it once. Then he looked up at Amos. The old man's fingers were failing. Isaiah let the compass fall. He used both hands to hold the cable. The brass circle disappeared beneath the rising water. Amos climbed. Isaiah followed. They reached the upper tunnel as the chamber wall broke. A roar chased them through Tunnel 3. Water struck the steel door, throwing it against the rock. Their lamps flashed across shaking timbers. Mud rose around their boots. At the collapse, Amos could not lift his injured arm. Isaiah pushed him through the narrow gap first. The water reached Isaiah's waist, then his chest. He turned sideways and forced himself between the stones. For one terrible second, the notebook caught inside his jacket. He pulled harder. The paper tore. A rock shifted above his back. Then Amos dragged him free. They stumbled through the drainage tunnel as water swept over the old rails. Daylight appeared ahead, small at first, then bright. They fell onto the riverbank beneath a pale morning sky. Behind them, clear water poured from the hidden tunnel and joined the river. Isaiah lay on wet grass, coughing. Amos placed Daniel's lunch box beside him. The lid had opened during the escape. Inside, beneath the survey papers, was a photograph Isaiah had not seen. Daniel stood in front of the machine shop, holding Isaiah as a baby. Lena stood beside them, laughing into the wind. On the back, Daniel had written one sentence: "Home is the reason." County officials tried to take the evidence that afternoon. They arrived at the machine shop with Sheriff Hale and 2 lawyers from Bellweather Holdings. But Isaiah had already copied every page. Amos had already called the state environmental office, and Lena Cole stood in front of the workbench with Daniel's notebook in her hands. She had learned where Isaiah went when the hospital called to say Amos had been admitted with a broken shoulder. For a long time, she said nothing to her son. Then she crossed the room and held him so tightly he could feel her shaking. "You do not get to leave me like he did." "I'm sorry." She pulled back and looked at his face. "Did you find him?" Isaiah glanced at the photograph. "No." Her eyes closed. The answer hurt, but it was clean, no false hope, no new ghost, only truth. When Sheriff Hale entered, Lena placed the notebook on the table but kept one hand over it. "These records belong to the investigation," Hale said. She looked at the red clay still caught in the seams of his boots. "No," she said. "They belong to the people you helped lie to." The sheriff's face changed. Not anger, defeat. Within 3 days, state investigators closed the ridge. Within 2 weeks, Bellweather Holdings admitted the old mine's surveys had been altered. The underground chamber contained a protected water source, just as Daniel had claimed. Tests also showed waste from the upper ponds had been leaking toward the river for years. The mine had never been empty. It had been full of evidence. The company's remaining assets were frozen. Cleanup crews arrived. The county began planning a new public water system. No gold was discovered. No secret fortune waited under the mountain. The thing everyone had missed was not something that could make one person rich. It was something that could keep an entire town alive. Months later, Isaiah returned to the mine entrance with his mother. The steel gate remained locked, but the old warning sign had been replaced. Beyond it, engineers moved beneath bright work lights. Pumps carried clean water through new pipes. Snow rested along the ridge. Lena held Daniel's photograph in one hand. Isaiah's other hand felt strangely empty without the compass. "You let it go?" she asked. He nodded. "To save Amos." She looked toward the dark tunnel. "Your father would have done the same." Isaiah watched water collect beneath the new pipes, clear enough to reflect the sky. For years, he had believed the compass was the only thing connecting him to Daniel. But objects were not people. They could point, they could remind, they could wait in darkness, but they could not choose for you. Isaiah reached into his coat and took out the torn strip of paper that had been hidden inside the compass. The numbers were blurred now. The edges were soft from water. His mother read the words on the bottom, find what they missed. She folded the paper and placed it inside Daniel's photograph. Then she gave both back to Isaiah. "What will you do with them?" He looked toward the machine shop below the ridge, where he had started repairing pumps for the cleanup crews after school. A state engineer had offered to help him apply for a summer training program. "I think I'll keep learning how things work." His mother smiled, but tears stood in her eyes. "Your father would like that." Isaiah studied the mountain one final time. The opening bell had sounded because water moved through a forgotten line. It had not been Daniel calling from below. It had been pressure finding a way out. Maybe truth worked the same way. You could seal it behind steel, bury it under reports, and wait for people to forget. But pressure remained, and sooner or later something rang. Isaiah and his mother walked down the service road together while snow began to fall across Bellweather Ridge. Behind them, deep under the mountain, clean water moved through the place where the compass had disappeared. It no longer pointed toward what was lost. It rested beside what had finally been found. Sometimes the thing worth searching for is not treasure, revenge, or a perfect ending. Sometimes it is simply the truth that allows people to begin again. And if this story stayed with you, share it with someone who still believes forgotten things can matter.